Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the surface of your persona, where light meets darkness in a constant, compelling duel? We will talk about power, Machiavellianism, narcissism, and balance. We will talk about the two dark nights of the hierarchy spectrum. In this video, we delve into the enigmatic realm of the anti-heroes, a place where the Dark Triad traits are not mere vices, but tools to shape a powerful, reflective identity, drawing inspiration from Jung's profound insights into the human psyche. We explore how different persona types, from the enigmatic Sigma to its raw, unfiltered subarchetype, the Zeta, navigate the shadows to find balance. Before starting, thank you for what you guys do for this channel. This likes and comments are vital for us. Much appreciated. Chapter 1. The Dark Triad. You ever wondered why some men can harness their darker impulses for growth, while others spiral into self-destruction? The answer lies not in what traits you possess, but in how you wield them. The Dark Triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and sociopathy, exists on a spectrum that reveals the critical distinction between Sigma and Zeta males. Imagine this spectrum as a measuring rod from 0 to 100, where crossing certain thresholds transforms these traits from tools into masters. Sigmas range between 65 to 80, practicing what we can call functional darkness. They embrace strategic narcissism, not to exploit others, but to maintain independence in a world that demands conformity. Their Machiavellianism manifests as tactical intelligence, dismantling corrupt systems rather than manipulating individuals. This controlled approach creates the paradox of the Sigma: socially capable, yet deliberately detached; powerful, yet refusing to dominate needlessly. Zetas, however, exist in the dangerous 70 to 90 territory. They don't merely use dark traits, they become them. Their narcissism isn't strategic but ego-driven, a desperate need for superiority that often manifests as contempt for others. Their Machiavellianism seeks not just advantage but dominance, manipulation not for navigation but for the intoxicating rush of control. Where Sigmas build alternative paths, Zetas often leave destruction in their wake, sometimes embracing dictatorship, like control over their spheres of influence. The threshold between these archetypes, roughly at 80%, represents a psychological Rubicon. Cross it, and self-awareness begins to dissolve. The traits no longer serve you, you serve them. The Sigma uses darkness as a torch in a cave. The Zeta becomes the darkness itself. A 2017 study in personality and individual differences found that individuals scoring high in Dark Triad traits often report impulsive thrill-seeking, but with a key divide. Sigmas show controlled impulsivity, planning risks, like negotiating a deal or manipulating for greater good, while Zetas dive into chaotic impulsivity, a total don't care attitude. Sigma see the fire pit. Zetas stare into the inferno and call it home. Jungs Shadow isn't a monster under the bed, it's a part of yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Sigmas grip that power. They admit, "I enjoy winning, but I won't cheat to do it," turning Machiavellianism into disciplined ambition. Zetas let the mind rule them, taking it all, but detached. They want others to beg them for help. What makes this distinction crucial isn't just morality, but also functionality. Sigmas recognize their shadow aspects as tools with specific purposes and limitations. Zetas mistake their shadow's impulses for their authentic self, embracing darkness not as a means but as an identity. One leverages, the other surrenders. The question isn't whether you possess these traits. All men do to varying degrees, but whether you're conscious of how they operate within you. Are you using them, or are they using you? Chapter 2. Jungs Shadow. Do you ever feel that strange pull toward behavior you intellectually reject? That's not weakness, it's your shadow speaking, and how you respond determines whether you'll be Sigma or Zeta. Jung's concept of the shadow represents everything we repress, deny, or hide. Our vulnerabilities, insecurities, and rage. Both sigmas and zetas contend with powerful shadows, but their relationships with this force couldn't be more different. The shadow isn't inherently destructive. It becomes dangerous only when denied, and this denial is where the Zeta path begins. Sigmas engage in what Jung termed shadow work, the conscious integration of these repressed aspects. They acknowledge vulnerability without being consumed by it, channeling shadow energy into controlled detachment. Their solitude isn't escapism. It's a deliberate confrontation with their darker impulses, before these impulses demand expression in destructive ways. A sigma recognizes his rage, his lust for power, his manipulative capacity, but holds these forces like a skilled falconer, controls a predatory bird, directing rather than suppressing. Zetas, conversely, project their shadow outward while denying its existence within. They mistake their shadow's whispers for strength, interpreting vulnerability as weakness rather than necessary counterbalance. This denial creates a psychological pressure cooker, where unacknowledged darkness festers into grandiosity, paranoia, and ultimately, self-destruction. The Zeta's apparent confidence is often an elaborate defense mechanism against confronting their fragile core. The shadow manifests differently in each archetype. For sigmas, it emerges as strategic withdrawal, calculated risk-taking, and occasional ruthlessness, all in service of autonomy. For zetas, it warps into compulsive dominance, ritualistic proving of superiority, and predatory social behavior that ultimately leaves them isolated. Jung's warning rings, especially true for both types. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. The sigma faces this challenge through integration, the zeta through denial. One grows stronger through acknowledgement, the other becomes enslaved through rejection. The ancient Stoics understood this dynamic well. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what we can and cannot control. Sigmas apply this wisdom to their shadow, recognizing its presence while choosing its expression. Zetas, consumed by the illusion of total control, paradoxically surrender control entirely. A 2019 study in psychology of men and masculinities exposed a brutal truth. Men who fear solitude often mask it with aggression or manipulation. Sigmas score lower in loneliness scales, not because they're loved more, but because they reframe isolation as clarity. Interestingly, zetas, meanwhile, spiral into paranoid autonomy, hating the world for leaving them alone, while pushing it further away. Though it is important for their don't care, tough guy attitude, they want to project, because vulnerability is a weakness in Zeta's realm. Zetas might be more stronger and intriguing, but at what cost? No one will remember him after he vanishes, even if someone does, often for negativity or as a dictator. Remember memento mori, remember death. Think what will happen to you when you pass. That's your scale. Who will remember you? Will the world remember you as an inventor or a dictator? Your shadow exists whether you acknowledge it or not. The question is, will you face it, or will it face you? Chapter 3. The Zeta's Inevitable Downfall. Have you noticed how men who seem invincible often collapse most spectacularly? This isn't coincidence. It's the predictable outcome of the Zeta pathway. Imagine a fortress. Sigma males construct theirs, with stone, thick enough to stop arrows, but with gates they control. They let allies in, but only after testing loyalty. Zeta males build walls of thorns. Anyone who gets close bleeds, and the barbs face inward too. Then they leave to conquer others, thinking the thorns would protect his. Though it can work, but why? They think attacking is the best defense. They call it strength, but it's just fear wearing armor. A 2020 study in social psychological and personality science found a cruel irony. Men who distrust others most are often the ones who crave loyalty desperately. Sigmas score high in selective trust. They verify, then invest. Zetas oscillate between paranoia and blind allegiance, sabotaging relationships to test them, then raging when they fail. Jung saw this as the shadow's hunger. Both archetypes fear betrayal. Sigmas admit, "I've been hurt, so I'll move carefully." Zetas bury the fear until it mutates into a monster. A Sigma's Machiavellianism becomes calculated boundaries, like a general choosing which hills to defend. A Zeta's Machiavellianism turns into scorched earth, burning bridges to prove they never needed them. Stoics built empires on this truth. Epictetus taught, "We suffer not from the betrayal of others, but from expecting them not to betray us." Sigmas embrace this. They vet ruthlessly, but forgive strategically, knowing trust is a tool, not a trophy. Zetas demand loyalty, like starving men demand feasts, gorging until they vomit, then blaming the food. This represents a psychological danger zone, where Dark Triad traits no longer serve as tools but become defining characteristics. This is borderline narcissism, Machiavellianism, and sociopathy, sometimes flooding over it. This transformation isn't merely behavioral, but neurological. The brain's reward pathways increasingly crave the dopamine rush of dominance, control, and admiration. What begins as strategic self-interest morphs into compulsion. What starts as tactical manipulation becomes pathological. Zetas fall into a self-reinforcing cycle that Jungian psychology perfectly explains. By misidentifying shadow impulses as strength, they create an unsustainable psychological structure. Consider the archetypal Zeta. When faced with criticism, he doesn't merely defend himself, but launches disproportionate counterattacks, interpreting every challenge as existential threat. This isn't strength, it's vulnerability, masquerading as power. The Zeta's refusal to integrate his shadow creates psychological fractures that widen over time, eventually resulting in catastrophic failure points. Relationships implode, careers collapse, or internal breakdowns occur when reality can no longer be bent to accommodate the grandiose self-image. This process follows a predictable trajectory that ancient Stoic philosophers like Seneca understood. The more powerful you become, he cautioned, the more you need the stabilizing force of reason. Modern psychology confirms this pattern. Studies on narcissistic personality structures reveal that beneath the grandiose exterior lies profound insecurity. The harder the Zeta fights to maintain his facade, the more resources he diverts from genuine growth. His apparent strength becomes his greatest weakness. Jung's concept of inertia, the tendency of things to turn into their opposites, explains why Zetas, who seem strongest, often fall hardest. Their refusal to acknowledge limitation creates the very limitations that eventually destroy them. Are you chasing power at the expense of wholeness? That path leads to one destination, the spectacular crash that awaits all who deny their full humanity. Chapter 4. Is mastery of the dark possible? Picture a river. Sigma males move like water, shaping themselves around obstacles, eroding resistance over time, never breaking their core. Zeta males harden into glass, gleaming with brittle pride, until the first real blow shatters them. Have you ever wondered how some men walk the edge without falling? This rare balancing act isn't accidental. It's the deliberate practice of shadow integration that defines the Sigma path. Unlike the Zeta's denial, the Sigma's approach to the Dark Triad involves conscious recognition and strategic channeling. This isn't suppression. Suppression merely creates pressure that eventually explodes. Instead, Sigmas practiced what Jung would call active imagination, deliberately engaging with their darker impulses in controlled environments. Before these impulses demand expression, the practical shadow work of a Sigma operates on 3 levels: awareness, channeling, and balance. First comes brutal self-honesty, acknowledging the narcissistic drive without shame. Yes, I need recognition, the Sigma admits, but I don't need to diminish others to achieve it. This awareness creates space between impulse and action, where choice becomes possible. The more you're aware, the less you need external validation. Next comes strategic channeling, using Machiavellian intelligence to navigate corrupt systems without becoming corrupt. The Sigma recognizes that certain environments require tactical deception, not as permanent strategy, but as contextual necessity. He might outmaneuver office politics, not to dominate colleagues, but to protect his autonomy and integrity within a flawed system. A 2018 study in Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed a stark divide. Under stress, adaptive individuals activate problem-solving brain regions, while rigid individuals trigger fear responses. Sigmas don't handle chaos better, they rewrite the rules of the game. Zetas cling to old rules, screaming at the dice for rolling wrong. Jung called this the shadow's flexibility. Both archetypes face failure. Sigmas ask, what part of me caused this? Using the shadow as a teacher. Zetas roar, why the world is rigged, letting the shadow morph into a jailer. A Sigma's psyche becomes detached focus, like a surgeon navigating a storm. A Zeta's psyche becomes vengeful fixation, like a gambler burning his last dollar to spite the dealer. Marcus Aurelius whispered on his deathbed, accept the tides, fight them, and you drown. Sigmas embody this. Zetas bury themselves in yesterday's corpse, demanding the world resurrect what's dead. Rigidity isn't strength, it's a eulogy for the living. The final component, balance, is where many would-be Sigmas fail, gradually sliding into Zeta territory, without regular recalibration through solitude, reflection, or even controlled vulnerability with select individuals. The Dark Triad traits begin to consume rather than serve. Same traits, drastically different integration. The Stoic, practice of premeditatio malorum, anticipating difficulties, serves Sigma as well. By mentally rehearsing challenging scenarios, they prepare their shadow responses rather than being ambushed by them. What would I do if challenged publicly? Becomes a thought experiment rather than a reactive crisis. Studies in psychological resilience confirm that acknowledging negative impulses actually reduces their power. The Sigma who can say, I notice my desire to manipulate this situation, paradoxically becomes less likely to do so unconsciously. The Sigma's control isn't about perfection, but consciousness. He doesn't eliminate darkness, but directs it, transforming potentially destructive energy into focused power. Are you aware of your darker impulses? Or do they operate behind the scenes of your consciousness? Mastery begins with recognition. Ask, am I river or glass? Survivor or shrapnel? The world doesn't care which you choose, but the river always reaches the sea. Chapter 5. Walking the Razor's Edge. Have you felt that surge of power when letting your darker traits take control? That intoxicating rush isn't weakness, it's raw potential that demands precision, not abandonment. The true challenge isn't escaping Zeta tendencies, but harnessing them at the optimal threshold. The sweet spot, that razor's edge between 75 to 80 on the Dark Triad spectrum, offers maximum power with minimum self-destruction. Beyond 80 lies the danger zone, where the traits begin to command you rather than serve you. Controlling this impulsivity doesn't mean suppression, but strategic deployment. The Zeta who commands respect does so not by abandoning his darker nature, but by weaponizing it with surgical precision. Like a fighter who knows exactly when to unleash controlled aggression versus when restraint serves his ultimate victory. The masterful Zeta recognizes contextual application. Shadow calibration represents the central discipline here, rather than rejecting impulses toward dominance, manipulation, or self-aggrandizement. Develop awareness of their intensity. When you feel the familiar rush of narcissistic supply or the temptation to deploy Machiavellian tactics, pause to assess the current reading on your internal meter. Tactical withdrawal serves as another powerful regulation mechanism. The strongest Zetas recognize when they're becoming compromised by their own intensity, like the predator that retreats after a kill Rather than hunting to exhaustion, they create distance when impulse threatens to override strategy. This isn't weakness, but supreme self-control, the discipline to step back when most would double down. The frame control techniques that make Zetas formidable can be directed inward. The same ability to define reality for others can be used to establish boundaries for yourself. Create personal rules that serve as circuit breakers. Specific triggers that mandate cooling off periods. When you recognize escalation toward the danger zone, remember that the most compelling anti-heroes maintain their dark charisma precisely because they walk the edge without falling. Their danger comes from control, not chaos. The moment they lose that control, they lose their power to compel. The ancient Stoic practice of temperance applies perfectly here. Marcus Aurelius didn't advocate eliminating passion, but channeling it purposefully. The fire that warms can also consume, he noted. The difference lies entirely in regulation. Are you strong enough to harness your darkness without becoming it? That mastery, maintaining position in controlled Machiavellianism, separates those who merely flash with power from those who sustain it. It draws a perfect balance for a Zeta archetype. This is the zone where raw ambition and calculated risk converge, creating a potent blend of strength and self-control. Beyond 80, the power becomes unruly, tipping into dangerous territory, but within that narrow band lies the essence of a strong, anti-heroic Zeta. Chapter 6. The Invisible Battlefield. The classic Sigma teaches that adaptability and self-reflection are not weaknesses, but essential tools for navigating life's unpredictable twists. Do you sometimes wonder if embracing both the profound and the potent within you could lead to a more enriched existence? Here, the Zeta, though a subpart of the Sigma identity, embodies a personality that is intriguingly dark and powerfully unyielding. When a Sigma becomes overly non-reactive, drifting into excessive spirituality or a laid-back attitude, they risk morphing into the Omega, a silent observer watching life pass by, stripped of the vibrant energy that propels meaningful action. In this delicate interplay, Sigmas can find inspiration in Zetas, reclaiming that spark of raw ambition, while maintaining a reflective, balanced approach. Have you ever considered that true mastery might lie in merging the best of both archetypes, avoiding the extremes of passivity and impulsivity, by fusing the thoughtful adaptability of the Sigma with the fierce, direct power of the Zeta? One can achieve a controlled intensity that thrives between calculated drive and meaningful introspection. This union not only defines the Dark Triad, sweet spot, but also serves as a reminder that strength is found in balance, where the darkness within is neither suppressed nor unleashed recklessly, but is artfully mastered to illuminate your path forward. Thanks for watching.